So we decided. So thank you everybody for participating in our mailbag as at the All Star break. And so normally with mailbag questions, the format is common. You do an article for it, but in this case, because we had questions, we put the questions out there for our Patreon, on Twitter, and our Discord folks. We decided to do a little. We decided to break it up and do it in a video format because I think it's actually to us it allows us to pontificate more and elaborate and really kind of get into some of the questions. So how we're going to format this is simple. We got questions from Twitter, we got questions from our Discord and our Patreon. So what's going to happen is essentially Twitter and Discord. Chris put them in the categories, and the Patreon folks are going to get pretty much all of this. And so if you want to join our Patreon, you can get the full list of questions because we had some very specific ones, and we're gonna start elaborating a little more on people like our format on Patreon. So if you join our paid tier, well, you'll see what I mean here in a second. But that being said, we have our Discord too, where we have people that randomly we asked if they wanted to participate, and we got some really good questions from there. So that being said, let's get into it, and let's start with trade talk. And this is from Motown or Mark Penra at Motown Marson GB,
I
and he
think
said,
it does. I think it's Mark and GB, right? It's just because.
yeah, Mark in Green Bay.
But,
Oh
I,
yeah,
but I,
Motown Mark in Green Bay. Duh.
I
Yeah.
always read it as Marson as well because
Yeah.
it's just the way our brains work. But
Yeah.
sorry. Hello,
Well,
Mark.
Mark, good fan. Mark, fan of the podcast, fan of the show. I know he's a long time. He would probably say something like that. But Motown Mark in Green Bay. His question is: if the Tigers are going to trade a prospect, or even a couple of them, to obtain help from the major league team and stretch in the stretch drive, who would be the guys you think they would turn the type of talent they need and they would give up?
That's a good question. It's one of the things like we're going to find out. I think pretty soon. I do think the Tigers are going to make some deals here. Yeah, the ones that you'll see people randomly online say, yeah, trade Jace Young and Matt Manning, right? Like these guys that have names. That's probably not going to get it done because those guys have come up to the big leagues and haven't really proved themselves. And oddly enough, they may, Young may still be considered a prospect in some circles, but I think that the bloom is off that rose a little bit. So you're looking at guys like Max Anderson, possibly Hao-Yu Lee, possibly Tyron Lorenzo. I think if the deal is right, and then beyond that, I think they would consider moving Frangerber Montilla because he's far enough away and he's kind of exciting. And then it's probably some of the more interesting depth guys that in the system that maybe we don't talk about a ton, but they've put up solid numbers or they've got some interesting traits. And even some of the relievers we've seen or talked about, like Dylan Smith or Jordan Marks or Tanner Colehep or some of these guys that have interesting arms but haven't necessarily done a ton.
Yeah, and relievers tend to guys that they can other teams want to project on. For example, with the trade for I'm trying to think of trade to Milwaukee a couple of years ago with
Mark Canha?
Yeah, Mark Canha trade.
They got Blake Holub. They traded.
Yeah, Blake Holub. Yeah. So there might be a team out there that want a couple of relievers that they could possibly bring into their own system and develop. But I think it's going to be a case where even possibly even like a Hao-Yu Lee or something along those lines, somebody who is almost major league ready. For example, the A's need a second baseman. The A's have a couple of prospects or a couple of guys that the Tigers could potentially look at too. And right now we're in the process of doing the trade articles and stuff like that. And we tend to, what I like about Chris and I, since the day we met, one thing is certain, we don't like doing, BS trade. Like, 5 guys the Tigers would trade. I know everybody hates that voice, but the reason I'm doing that voice is because there's sites out there, fan-sided, that will do this clickbait kind of thing, and I'd rather do realistic trade options or possibilities because I just don't. Yeah, no team's gonna go like, yeah, I'll take Matt Manning and Wilmer Flores, even though he's injured, and I'll also take Chris Myers. And not to say Chris Myers is not a good prospect or anything, but there are certain teams have a way of like they identify guys that they like that go in there well with their system. That being said, I really think that the Tigers do have to give up at least if they're going to make an impactful trade, it's going to have to be a guy in the top. Like depending on what list you follow, it's going to be a top. It has to be a top 10 guy. It really does. If it really has to something, and I know that this organization covets their prospects, but in order to get over the top, that's what they have to do.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the things that you can look at is sort of we've talked about this before, but like the return that the Tigers got last year for their trade chips, and they weren't elite trade chips by any means, right? Jack Flaherty was the big one, and if you want to get a player like that, you have to give up two pretty solid prospects, right? One of whom moved into the top 100 shortly thereafter the trade, and the other one who is a borderline big league regular. Some people thought Sweeney might be better than that, and he struggled this year. But I don't know if they're going to go out there and get a Jack Flaherty, like a number 2, number 3 starter. They probably should, but it doesn't seem like the sort of thing that they're going to do. So then you look at it like, what did it take to get Andrew Chafin? When if you get a Chafin level reliever, which they could use, somebody who gets a lot of strikeouts, maybe walks are high, but solid lefty. They got Chase Lee and was that Liam Hicks for that one? I think
Yeah.
possibly Montalvo. I don't remember. The two trades were the same, but basically you're looking at some sort of mid-tier prospects, guys who might have some interesting future, but not necessarily, busting their way to the big leagues. Chase Lee has been, I think, a lot better than most people expected. So someone like that, somewhere in that
What?
15 to 30 range.
A guy who might get some considerations, RJ Pettit. I mean, if you think about this way, I mean, it is weird to me, and we've talked about this before, that with his stuff, he's still in Erie. And Andrew Magno is another guy too who dominates the level. Maybe a guy like Trey Cruz, who a team that may possibly right now he's in Toledo, but I still think that Trey Cruz is the type of player that could make a bench. He can make a bench somewhere on the major league roster. I think he has that kind of capability. He's a very talented player. Excuse me, who can play multiple positions, and that family bloodline also helps too. So that being said, I could see Trey Cruz being moved with somebody else, but like again, somebody of another upper tier. Now I know that Sky Harris has said there's 3 guys, there's nobody untouchable, but I mean you have to be really blown away by an offer for that.
Yeah, I mean, I can't really even. I mean, we talk about like people put out that fantasy trade of Paul Skeens, right? And who has the prospects to get Paul Skeens? It's never going to happen, but
Yeah.
it would have to be that kind of return to see them move their top 3 prospects. I think Clark, McGonigal, and Rayner, and I guess you throw Brussenos in there. I do think there's a world where they would trade Brussenos because he and Lorenzo are sort of similar enough. But I think they would probably prefer Lorenzo instead of Brussenos.
I think they would rather have Prasangio than Lorenzo, only because I feel that.
I meant they would prefer to trade Lorenzo.
Oh yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Okay. Yeah. Okay. We're on the same page. Okay.
Yeah, that's the way I meant to say it. Sorry.
It's okay. So that kind of goes into the same kind of question from Go Blue. Is it Go Blue?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
it's spelled like
The French style.
yeah, down in New Orleans.
New Orleans. You know what? Nolans, yeah, down in one of the parishes, if you will. Most likely Tiger prospects to be traded at the deadline. I mean, just going to some of the ones we just mentioned now, fall in line. I think I look at their current infield situation right now. It's very crowded. I know everybody wants the assumption that Max Clark Max Anderson would be the one to be traded, and who knows? I mean, they are playing him at third, but I think if I'm thinking about this realistically out loud, Jace Young, if there's a team that has a shining for him, I think that's a possibility. But even like a John Peck. The reason why I think John Peck would be interesting to a team like that is like he's been hitting the cover off the ball last month or so, and I can see a team that could use infield help in that lower level. Like for example, I don't know why the Pirates. I feel like the Pirates would like that guy. I don't know why I would like if they decide to trade for Bednar or whomever as a reliever kind of possibility too. And just as I should put this as a disclaimer. Just because a scout's at a game doesn't mean anything. Scouts are at all games. Just say, this is the time you were like, well, a certain scout was at a game. So
Yeah.
what? No big deal.
Yeah, Tiger Scouts were spotted here. Um, yeah, I mean, I think everyone in the organization, including Max Anderson, thinks he's getting traded. um, but yeah, I think Young and Hao Yu Lee and Max Anderson are all kind of redundant in a way. I do like that you mentioned John Peck. I think John Peck and a couple other players, Isaac Pacheco, Jack Penny, Jim Jarvis, all these kind of these sort of depth infielders could be an interesting like second piece in a deal, right? Or if they want, say they want a pitcher, a younger pitcher who they like, they like his arm. They want an Andrew Sears or something like that. This team does, and you go, okay, Andrew Sears and John Peck, here you go, and we get David Bednar. I don't know. I'm just spitballing here, but that's the sort of thing where I don't know if those guys would lead a deal, but I think they would be sweeteners, if you will.
Yeah, because I mean, case in point, you just drafted Jack Penny, who's essentially pretty much another version, or Jack Goodman rather. You
Yeah.
drafted Jack Goodman for essentially maybe replacing Jack Penny. If you're going to throw in Jack Penny in a trade as possibly, just as an example, because Jack Goodman also plays multiple positions too,
Yeah.
and has a kind of pedigree to him. So let's move on to let's. So you want to go with draft talk or miscellaneous first for 300, Alex?
Well, let's do draft talk. Well, the draft is still fresh in our
Yes.
mind.
So let's do draft talk from Deadly Ninja Bees. So, who was your favorite draft pick this year? He has two questions. And second question, would you rather have a good team every year or mortgage the future to try to win the World Series now? Let's answer. You want to answer the first question first?
Yeah, sure. It's kind of lame, but my favorite was the guy that I wanted them to take. It's Malachi Witherspoon, which is their second round pick, their third pick in the draft. It'd be fun to pick a sleeper later on, right? But this is the guy that I really wanted them to take with their third or fourth pick because his stuff is legit. It's a fastball. I watched his final start of the year. He started against Nebraska with 6 scoreless innings. It's the strikes are definitely very scattered. Some of it, like there are times when it's just a ball right out of his hand, and you know that. But his fastball sitting 95 the entire game. Early in the outings, it's 97, 98, and it settles at 95, 96. I didn't see a single fastball below 95, and it's got some teeth to it. It's more of a sinker, like a two-seamer, and it did get hit hard a couple times, but it's the sort of like raw arm strength and being able to hold that velocity that you think that a pro pitching staff can really figure it out and maybe get him throw more strikes. And then he pairs it with a couple of good breaking balls. The harder one is like 86 to 89, supposedly been up to 91, so it's kind of a slider slash cutter. And then he's got one with more depth in the 82, 83 range that looks like a curveball, but it's still pretty hard for a curveball. And then he threw, I think, one changeup in that start, and
Wow.
it was 90, so it's a little bit firm, but it looked like a changeup, which is a start. And the thing is, they even mentioned it on the broadcast. The coach, Oklahoma's coach, called all the pitches in that game. So if he couldn't have thrown more changeups even if he wanted to. He was just doing what the coach told him to. But in any event, it's a really nice arsenal. It's good stuff. His twin brother got taken in the top 20, and he has the exact same stuff. It's just more strikes with him. So get Malachi Witherspoon throwing strikes, and you have, I think, a potential number 4 starter. You can dream on number 3 starter with a floor of being a pretty solid reliever. So I don't know. I like that pick a lot.
So for me, Michael Alvatito, is it
Oliveto.
Oliveto? Okay, so Oliveto. Michael Oliveto to me is my so far. I would only because his personality, he seems like a good kid kind of thing. But if I'm gonna have like I guess a another like somebody who I guess because I'm a sucker for left-handers is Grayson Ginsel out of Oregon. I thought that was a really good pick at number in round number 6 because it gives the Tigers a guy who the Tigers don't have a lot of lefties in their system right now. And so I think they made a point to address that too. They addressed a lot of the pitching. So Ben Jacobs was the guy who I called that I'm like, oh yeah, Ben Jacobs would be cool.
Yeah, I thought you were going to go with him.
Yeah, well, I didn't want to make it obvious, but
Yeah,
but it was uh, both him and Grayson. I think are going to be good additions to this ball club because with Ben Jacobs too, his frame, his makeup, his pitch mix too, the fact that he's already thrown kind of a changeup anyway. I think it bodes well for the Tigers. And I know he played in the is it Pac-12? Is it still the Pac-12 technically, or
What in Oregon?
Arizona? No, or I'm sorry, Arizona State for
Oh,
Jacobs.
I don't know. Is Arizona State in the? I don't know what
Big
Arizona State is in. Is it?
Yeah, is it the Mountain? I don't know what the hell conference they're in, but either way, Arizona State is a really good program. They're known more for their offense, but however, the thing about Jacobs too, and this is something that we've noticed with the draft in general, it does follow that kind of. He also came from Huntington Beach, which is another area the Tigers scout very well. So I like him a lot, and he made his Cape. I started looking up some of his stuff in the Cape Cod League too, which is why I thought the Tigers would draft him. But getting back to the one I got, Grayson Ginsel, same thing. It's like the Tigers have a certain way to go about it, but he has a plus changeup, and I think that's going to really play off the Tigers and really kind of his fastball is only 92, 93, but that plays up exactly what the Tigers do, which is just velocity doesn't matter to him. Can you hit the strike zone? Perfect. Then okay, then it fits up really well. But he has really good command. He throws strikes, and that I think is going to bode well for him and move up pretty fast. As far as the second question goes, which is would you rather have a good team every year or mortgage the future to try to win the World Series now? I'd rather go. You know what? Get the World Series. Look, the Tigers haven't won a World Series since 1984. They came up a couple times in the mid millennium. We all know the 2006, the series against the Giants. Honestly, I like the Tigers being competitive every year, and I think with the current personnel they have, they can be competitive. If the Tigers don't make the playoffs every year, but they're competitive at least, I'm cool with that. Like, or even hit the wild card every 2 years and they stay competitive. That's to me. Just don't become the Pittsburgh Pirates. Don't be what's this guy's name? What's that douchebag's name?
Oh, the owner,
Yeah.
Bob Boner.
Yeah,
It's Bob Nutting, I think, right?
Bob Nutting. Yeah, sorry, I forgot his name. Bob Nutting. Just don't be Bob Nutting. Just don't tell everybody you're going to compete and then tell the fans of something else different. So
Yeah. For me, I think it'd be one thing if you could guarantee that you were going to get a World Series, right? But you just can't. Like you could go out and they could trade for Jacob deGrom and Paul Skeens and David Bednar and I don't know Aaron Judge and still lose in the playoffs and have zero in the pipeline coming down the road in the next couple of years. It sounds lame, but I think the smart thing to do is kind of the middle road, right? Just give yourself more tries at the World Series. If you think you can build a consistent playoff team and contender, I think do that. And if it involves trading some prospects for established big leaguers who have more than that aren't just rentals, I think that's the route that they're going to go. They're going to keep trying to get better at the big league level without really sacrificing their top players in the lower minors.
yeah, and I think you're right. The way that is being built right now, with the way they have it structured, rigid structure of everybody going to West Michigan, Lakeland, West Michigan, Erie, Toledo, and there's nobody jumping levels or anything. I know it sounds people are just like, oh, which is, they want their favorite player or why they're not being called up. It works for the Tigers, and right now, as it stands, we only seen a little bit of it working. I mean, we still need more time before we see it in full effect. Obviously, with Harris's guys and what have you, or this current regime's people, but it's a system for them that works, and Toledo's being the final ground. And so, yeah, I think they have, for the first time, like we mentioned this a couple times in the pod, this is the first time they have depth in their system. I mean, outside the outfield, I still think the outfield depth is kind of like I consider a big weakness. But they have enough infielders and pitchers that right now, even with the pitchers that they drafted, which helps backfill that roster, like you were mentioning, yeah, I want them to stay competitive, but at the same time, if they have a chance to win the World Series, especially in the way that like the mark, like right now the current player situation, the way labor negotiators are going, who knows what's going to change? They're talking about cap. They're talking about all these things that might, there's going to be some sort of change, whether we like it or not. So
Yeah, it's if the opportunity presents itself and you can get a superstar, then go for it, right? I just it's that sort of thing seems to happen more often in the off season, where you can go out and you go get, I don't know, Ronald Acuna is available all of a sudden because Atlanta wants to completely redo things. Like, go for it.
yeah,
I don't see that happening in a trade deadline, but it just depends on who you're getting, right? Like, if you can get that superstar who's going to put you over the top, then do what you got to do to get it. I just don't see that type of player getting moved very often anymore.
yeah. It doesn't. It's like Atlanta when Atlanta made that trade a couple of years ago. They got a couple mid guys that helped them put them on the top of the World Series.
Yeah, and that's the year they won that World Series. Yeah, who were the big? It was like Eddie Rosario and Jorge Soler.
Yeah,
Weren't those the guys that hit all the home runs for him in the playoffs? It was wild.
yeah,
So yeah, I mean, sometimes it's just about adding depth and remaking certain. In that case, their outfield was weak, so they went out and got some guys who could hit, and there you go.
yeah. So next question comes from Dad Depression. Funny name. Obviously, everything is pool money based on which takes time to shake out. But are you hearing any of the high schoolers who were more than likely taken as insurance of higher priority ones not signing? Or do you think realistically they'll try to chase everyone? I think they'll have a chance to sign everybody. I mean, River Hamilton comes to mind. That I mean, he's the guy who LSU was going to sign for LSU, but I think that they knew full well that the Tigers are like, no, you're going to sign with us. So I think everybody else too, based off the high schoolers they picked, we're going to sign.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything
Yeah,
about who might sign and who might not. If I were to guess, I would say that their 18th rounder Ethan Rogers, the left-handed pitcher from Missouri, I would guess that he doesn't sign. He's committed to Wichita State, and he's a pretty solid prospect. To me, it felt a little bit like he's kind of their insurance in case something goes wrong with River Hamilton. River Hamilton was their 11th round pick, and I think they're going to give him close to $1 million to sign, and I think they'll have it. But if just in case something goes wrong there, I think Rogers gives them a good fallback option. A guy that like it'd be awesome if they sign him, and maybe they can get them both for certain a couple $100,000 less than I think. And then the other option is possibly Meridian Lefew, the high school infielder that they took in the 19th
yeah,
round. I don't remember where he's committed to, but anytime you take those high schoolers late in the teen rounds, sometimes you could say, hey, if we have the money, we'll sign you for this amount. But they might end up not having the money. I, my guess is they're going to sign 18, 19 of these 21 guys. It'd be awesome if they get them all. And it's also always a possibility that one of those. I think they took 3 JUCO arms, right? They're going to
yeah.
sign. They're going to sign Witwiska for sure because they took him in the top 10 rounds. The other 2 JUCO guys, it's Wimpelberg and is it who was the other one?
The JUCO,
Christensen?
you talking about
No.
JUCO guys or
Yeah, it was.
wait?
There was a second. Cash Kuiper.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I
Out of
imagine
Murray
they're going to
State. Yeah,
sign. They might not sign Wimpelberg. I don't know. Maybe these guys are already signed. I just would expect that. Yeah, like I said,
yeah.
19, 18, 19 of these guys are going to sign.
Meridian, by the way, is committed to Central Florida.
Okay, so that doesn't seem like it's a solid program, but nothing crazy that you can't like. They're not going to come over the top with like $500,000 in NIL money. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? So if the Tigers can give him 250 grand or something like that, you would think that they might be able to get him. So
yeah. Same thing with a guy like the high schooler out of St. John Bosco, Trevor Heishman.
yeah, well, they took him in the ninth round, so
Yeah, you're
yeah,
right.
they're going to sign him unless
Yeah,
there's something wrong with his medical or something. But yeah, yeah, I think they're going to get almost all of them.
yeah,
It's just that yeah, Ethan Rogers is the one that I'm not quite sure about.
yeah. That's the kid out of Lone Jack, Lone
Yeah,
Star. Sorry,
Lone
I just did that.
Jack.
It's Lone Jack. So let's move on to catcher talk, and this is from Ghost Map and our Discord. I haven't been able to watch. So I'd love to know the chances of both Briseño and Lazard.
Lorenzo.
Wow, Lorenzo actually sticking at catcher. I'm going to say that Brussenos is. I still think he's a first baseman long term.
Hmm.
I think Lorenzo has a better chance to stick at catcher. Is it a plus catcher? Eh,
Yeah.
like he's got a good arm. He's got a good arm. He's been getting better, and both can call their own. They both call their own games. Arsenio, if I had to guess, if the Tigers were, if the Tigers are going to choose a catcher, it'd probably be Arsenio. But I still think
Yeah.
he's better off at first base.
Yeah. I mean, putting a number on it, I would say there's 20% chance that Brussenos catches in the big leagues at all. You know, it's kind of that there's no real harm in him continuing to try it, and it would be nice if he's the sort of guy who could catch once a week, and otherwise, play. Like, let's say like Dingler just becomes a legitimate all-star Cal Raleigh level player,
Yeah,
and is you want him in the lineup 150 times a year. If you could have him catch, 4 or 5 times a week and have Brussenos catch once a week, I think that'd be huge. I don't see that happening though. I don't see Brussenos catching for AJ Hinch. I think AJ Hinch really values having strong defensive catchers, and Brussenos has gotten better, but it's still pretty raw. His arm is average, maybe above average, but the receiving is kind of iffy, and just strange things happen. Balls glance off his glove, and he's just not. He's just kind of stiff. I would say, like, he
yeah,
doesn't move. He's not terribly fluid behind the plate. Lorenzo is a little bit more athletic and fluid behind the plate, but he has some of the same issues. He's a big guy. His arm is stronger. It's like a legitimate 70 arm, but sometimes it takes him longer to get the throw going, and still some receiving and issues there too. Lorenzo would be another one that I think that they would love if he could play twice a week and then play
yeah.
DH for first base in the big leagues. That I think they'd be happy with that. But yeah, if I were to, I'd put Lorenzo at like 50% and Brusseino at like 20%.
Yeah, yeah. Because even watching Tyrone play in the early part of the year, the first series for Erie, he dropped a lot of balls. It was really cold, to be fair, though. So I'm just gonna give him the benefit of the doubt for that. And Epic Epic 3C. Which one has a higher ceiling between the two we just mentioned? And I'm gonna go with I'm gonna go with Brusseino.
Yeah, I mean, I think simply because Lorenzo has the better chance to catch, that gives him a higher ceiling. I think Brusseino has a much higher floor. Lorenzo's floor is not doing anything in the big leagues. I think I believe enough in Brusseino's bat that I think he could at least be like a second division first baseman. He's going to come up and be a first baseman who plays or hits you like 250 with 20 home runs, which would be perfectly acceptable, right? Like that's like close to Torkelson level, and I think he could be more than that. But Lorenzo, there's that chance that 5-10% chance that he's a switch hitting everyday catcher who hits you 25, 30 home runs and walks a ton. It's very unlikely, but I think that ceiling gives him more. I don't know, unless I really like Josue Briseño. I just it's hard for me to say like I think he's got the potential to be like a 280 hitter with 30 home runs down the road. It's hard for me to really guarantee that.
Yeah, no, it totally makes sense. I just I know as far as like Tyrone goes, as far as him sticking at catcher, yeah, with the way Hinch is, how he wants his catchers, I don't. I can see him maybe possibly even moving to first base at some point too. I think the Tigers are going to they have some interesting dilemmas when it comes to catching. They have a good problem with catching right now, and I think that the Liam Hicks going to Miami threw him off. I really think that was. I mean, I think Hicks was going to be legitimate, like a backup plan,
Hmm.
or like a backup, and based off because they went on the way to acquire him from Texas, and then Miami was like, yeah, nah, we're going to take him. I think it threw him off a little bit. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
I don't think they were expecting that at all.
no. So for the miscellaneous section, for Michael Siffer, who is a huge, he's a University of Toledo alum, and Long-time listener. Chris Myers, Eastern League Player of the Month. Been in the area a while. Time to move up? Yes. However, it
It's
won't happen until they decide to do something in Toledo. Whether it's, I think it will be after the trade deadline, because I think what's going to happen is if they're gonna, think whoever they're going to move and whoever they would move, they would have to. I think he's worked on his swing, so there's been some swing change mechanics with Chris Myers, and that's why he's been hitting the ball better. So that's going to play a part on his why he's been hitting, or that's why he's been doing well. So that being said, I think he is more than willing to deserve more. I'm gonna try that again. Is deserving to go to Toledo. That's his home. He's from Ohio. He's from that part of Ohio. Actually, he's south from Dayton, like an hour from Dayton. But nevertheless, he was a university. He's a big, go Rockets. That's a Rocket alum right there, and I know that would help out the fan base a little bit there. But overall, he also this guy can also still play the outfield, first base, a little bit of third. I mean, he was a shortstop at University of Toledo, but yeah, I think it won't be till after the trade deadline.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this with Trey Cruz, right? It was
Yeah,
beyond time for him to move up. It's sometimes they just don't have room. They want these other guys up in Toledo just in case something goes wrong. I've compared Chris Myers a few times to Josh Lester, the former kind of similar player who I want to say he hit 30 bombs one year in the Tigers minor leagues, maybe twice. Eventually made it up to the big leagues with the Orioles. Just, I don't know if I don't know if he's the Tigers kind of player, this front office's kind of player. Like there are things about him that I think they like. He hits for power. As you said, he's got defensive versatility, but his defensive versatility is at the corners. And I think they just really favor guys who can play up the middle for the most part.
yeah,
And I don't know, like you said, he absolutely deserves to be in Toledo. There are a lot of guys at Erie who've deserved to be at Toledo for a while, and it's just not the way this organization's operating right now. They want these, more veterans who can come up and help the big league in an emergency right now. So unfortunately, he has to wait, like you said.
yeah. It sucks for a guy like him, but at the same time, the organization, yeah, but for him, he's the type of guy who would like to play. I'm sure would thrive playing every day versus just being a part-time player in
Yeah,
Toledo.
yeah, and he's a good player. It's
Yeah,
part of what makes the organization so strong is having a bunch of guys like that who probably should be at higher levels, but they aren't, and so they're putting up good numbers. But yeah, he's just gonna have to wait his turn, I suppose.
yeah. And then the final question from Miscellaneous is from Eric Kane. He says, "What happened to Ty Madden? I know he's on the injured list, but it seems like surgery is inevitable with how little news has come out." Look, Tiger's injury report, minor league report, is like it's like Mission Impossible. Like you don't know. The Tigers keep that very close to the vest, and we haven't heard Terry, for example, down in Lakeland, does photography. So if you follow her on Tiger Minor League Tracker on Facebook, she does a fantastic job of pictures and what have you. So if you go to Instagram, you go on Facebook, Terry's good for that stuff. And I have not seen one picture of Ty Madden like randomly, walking around Lakeland or anything like that. So usually, like she'll say something too, like she'll say, "Hey, I've seen this person walking back and forth in camp." Nothing, nothing at all.
Yeah, I mean, he's been on the Tigers injury report a bunch of times, and it's like he's completing rehab daily, playing catch. I don't know if I've seen him have thrown a bullpen. It was a shoulder injury, so I don't know if necessarily surgery is inevitable, but it could just be one of those things where it's a very long rehab process to rehab from a shoulder injury because you got to make sure everything's super healthy and it's a lot of like fits and starts. You throw 15 pitches, check to see how it is afterward, check to see how it is the next day, check to see how it is the next day, throw 15 more pitches, just a lot of that. So yeah, we haven't heard anything. I'm not expecting to see him this year, but the other thing about this, like you said, it's kind of mysterious is then we don't expect to see these guys and then boom, they pop up like on a rehab assignment the next day. Like,
Yeah,
oh, Ty Madden's pitching in Lakeland today. Like, so I really don't know. I mean, we talked about Brett Callahan. We had heard some rumors that Brett Callahan was out for the whole season, and then he popped up in the FCL playing. So it's just hard to guess. But as you said, the context clues there don't point to Ty Madden showing up anytime soon.
Yeah, I don't see anything that's going to change on that. So we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we're going to be talking we're going to do the Patreon portion. So if you're a Patreon fan or a Patreon member, you'll get your questions answered. And if you want to join our Patreon so you can see what the Patreon folks asked, then go free join the paid tier. So, but we'll be right back though.